The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung. We often believe love is enough. But what happens when transformation doesn't lead to growth but exhaustion, confusion, or quiet resentment? According to Jung, true connection requires psychological compatibility. Not just attraction, not just shared interests, but resonance at the level of values, shadows, and unconscious patterns. In this video, we'll uncover 7 hidden signs that your relationship may be psychologically incompatible, even if everything looks fine on the surface. These signs aren't about drama or obvious toxicity. They're about the subtle fractures that slowly erode connection. By the end, you'll be able to tell whether your relationship is nourishing your deeper self or draining it. Let's begin. Sign: you can't grow in their presence. In a compatible relationship, your growth is celebrated, even if it challenges the dynamic. But in an incompatible one, you feel stuck. There's an unspoken pressure to stay the same, to not change too much, to keep fitting the mold they first approved of. Jung taught that the self is not static, it's becoming. It seeks wholeness through constant integration of new insights, new shadows, new truths. If your partner is threatened by that evolution, if they mock your dreams, discourage your ambitions, or subtly shame your healing, they aren't loving the real you. They're loving who you were when it was convenient. This isn't always loud. Sometimes it's passive, a sigh when you talk about your new goals, a look of disinterest, a subtle pivot away. These signs tell your unconscious, don't grow. It's not safe here. And when growth becomes dangerous in a relationship, your psyche begins to split. You hide parts of yourself. You suppress aspirations. You stop reaching. You trade authenticity for approval, but the cost is high. Your soul withers where it cannot expand. A compatible partner doesn't just allow your growth, they inspire it. Emotional safety is missing. Emotional safety isn't about walking on eggshells or avoiding conflict. It's about knowing your feelings are allowed, that you can speak, even awkwardly, even painfully, and still be met with care. In an incompatible relationship, emotional vulnerability becomes a risk. You hesitate before expressing something important, afraid it will be dismissed, judged, or used against you. Jung emphasized that authentic relationships require a meeting of the unconscious minds. That means creating a space where both people can bring their fears, wounds, and shadows to the surface without punishment. When emotional safety is absent, intimacy turns into performance. You smile when you're hurting, you downplay needs, you censor your truth. Over time, this corrodes the bond, because no real love can grow without truth. If you're afraid to be fully human in front of them, your compatibility is already fractured. Sign 3. Core values clash. Shared hobbies, humor, or attraction might bring people together, but it's shared values that keep them connected. When your core values don't align, even simple decisions become battlegrounds. One of you values freedom, the other control. One values truth, the other comfort. One seeks depth, the other avoids discomfort. Over time, these mismatches become emotional landmines. Jung believed that values are tied to the archetypes operating within us. If your dominant inner archetypes are fundamentally different from your partner's, and neither of you is willing to evolve or integrate, it leads to tension that logic can't resolve. You might love each other deeply, but live by different internal compasses. This creates chronic frustration. Why don't they get it? You may try to explain yourself over and over, but they still don't see the world through your lens. Not because they don't care, but because their psyche is structured differently. Compatibility is not about thinking the same, but about valuing what the other values at a soul level. Sign 4. You feel more alone with them than without them. One of the most painful paradoxes in love is feeling utterly alone. Even when someone is physically next to you, in an incompatible relationship, presence does not equal connection. As you may have conversations, share meals, even sleep in the same bed, but feel like your inner world is completely unseen. Jung saw loneliness as not being without people, but as being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. In a mismatched relationship, you talk, but you don't feel heard. You open up, but the responses feel empty or off-empty. It's a soul-level disconnection, and this loneliness is more draining than solitude because it tricks your nervous system. You think, I shouldn't feel this way, I'm not alone, yet emotionally you are. The right partner doesn't need to fix everything, they just need to see you. When you speak, they lean in. When you're silent, they notice. When you hurt, they respond with attunement. When that's missing, your soul feels abandoned in company. And that's a warning sign not to ignore. Constant power struggles. Every relationship will encounter friction, but when power struggles become the norm, not the exception, it's a sign of psychological mismatch. Who makes decisions? Who apologizes first? Who gets their way? These dynamics often stem from unintegrated shadows, parts of ourselves we disown, which we then project onto our partner. Jung wrote extensively about projection, warning that when we don't own our own need for control, we accuse the other of being controlled. When we suppress our own helplessness, we see them as weak. In incompatible relationships, both partners unconsciously fight for dominance, not because they want to harm, but because their wounds are clashing. You argue not just about what's on the table, but about who matters more. A compatible relationship has room for balance. Both voices are heard. Influence flows both ways. Power isn't hoarded, it's shared. If you feel like you're always defending yourself, proving your worth, or fighting to be taken seriously, you're not just battling your partner. You're battling psychological incompatibility. Repeated communication breakdowns, misunderstandings are normal, but if you find yourselves having the same fight over and over with no resolution, only fatigue, this points to deeper incompatibility. You explain, they don't get it. You try a new approach, still misunderstood. This isn't always about poor communication skills. Sometimes it's about different mental languages. You may process through emotions, they process through logic. You seek reassurance, they seek space. You want to talk now, they shut down. These mismatches create chronic frustration. Jung believed that many conflicts are not about content, but about the type of consciousness each person operates from. Feeling vs thinking, intuition vs sensation. If these are not respected or understood, communication becomes warfare. In a compatible bond, you learn each other's language, you adapt, you meet halfway. In an incompatible one, every conversation feels like translation without a dictionary. Over time, your desire to even try starts fading, and silence becomes the default. 7. You can't imagine a future that feels peaceful. Tilde 450, 400 words. Look ahead 5 years. What do you feel? If imagining a future with them brings anxiety, dread, or emotional tightness, it's your unconscious sounding the alarm. Jung believed the psyche knows before the ego does. If your dreams, your gut, or your body reacts negatively to the thought of a long-term bond, it may be because something deep inside you knows this isn't your path. It's not always logical. You may love them, you may share a home, but the soul doesn't lie. Incompatible relationships often require constant emotional labor to keep afloat. You imagine the years ahead as hard work, compromises, exhaustion. You hope they'll change or that you'll get used to it, but the right relationship feels safe in your nervous system. Not perfect, but steady. You can see conflict, but also resolution. You see growth, shared dreams, maybe even joy. If you can't picture peace with them, don't ignore that. It may not mean they're a bad person, just not your person. Compatibility isn't just about liking the same movies or wanting the same number of kids. It's about the deep architecture of your psyche. How you love, process, grow, and relate. Carl Jung taught us that much of what we call fate is actually unconscious choice. Staying in an incompatible relationship out of fear, guilt, or comfort is not fate, it's avoidance. Now that you've seen the 7 signs, take an honest look within. Not every painful relationship is toxic. Some are just mismatched souls trying to find home in each other. But your true home, your true self, deserves more than survival. It deserves connection that helps you expand. And that begins by honoring the signs. Now that you've seen the 7 signs, take an honest look within. Not every painful relationship is toxic. Some are just mismatched souls trying to find home in each other. But your true home, your true self, deserves more than survival. It deserves connection that helps you expand. And that begins by honoring the signs. Now that you've seen the 7 signs, take an honest look within.